Great. Hi, everybody. Good to see you
Hello.
all. Very exciting time. Nerve-wracking time. I'm going to say for me, I'm just, it's nerve-wracking to be wondering what's going to happen and feel prepared for town meeting. So, but Liz gets the honor of presenting, I do believe, with Cindy. I think that was their plan the other night anyway. And don't know whether that's still the plan, but
I think Anthony, Cindy, and myself.
oh, good. The three of you, great. Okay, but that has nothing to do with the purpose of this meeting. And the meeting was called because when the town warrant came, all of a sudden, I was reading Article 20. And at the very bottom, it says, Select Board voted to recommend approval of the article. The Finance Committee and the Council on Aging recommendations are forthcoming. And it occurred to me that we never did vote on our recommendation regarding this article. And so, okay, we need to have a little special meeting to discuss that and decide what our vote is going to be so we can let Anthony and Joe know and the select board. So that's the purpose of the meeting as far as I'm concerned, and the only business at hand, unless we have, something that comes up otherwise in addition to that. So, and the real question is, as you know, I don't know if you've all read the article. I hope you have. Article 20 has 7 parts to it. So it's a little complex, to say the least, I think. It's not a simple little article. And I don't know how you want to proceed. Do you want to go through each number to see if any, or just maybe leave it in general if you have a problem with one number? There's one in 1 through 7, and you have a difficulty with number 7, bring it up and so we can talk about it, or number 1, 2, 3, any of them. How do you want to proceed to make it easy? And so I can go down the list and just say, is there anybody that hasn't read the article and isn't familiar with it or doesn't have it in front of them? So that, great, David, thank you. And Marilyn, I got mine too. So
You want me to share screen, Marge, and put it up?
well, I don't know. How do you want to proceed, board? Are you familiar with it enough to feel comfortable to just discuss it and say, we want to recommend the Article 20 as is printed in the town warrant? That's a possible vote. Or if people have issues with a particular item in the warrant, maybe we should approach it that way. Mark arrived.
Why don't we start with letting Gary give us an update of last night's meeting for anybody who did not watch it?
Okay, good point, because that might move us along, Anita. You're right.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So the initially, the Finance Committee wanted to wait, kind of like the COA did, but we wanted to wait to the last minute to get these final numbers in, and we're glad we did. I mean, the numbers came back much better. Over $4 million from moving it to the slope site to the tennis court. So it was a big discussion for us last night. That was one of the articles we had waited to vote on. And it was a split vote, 4-3. Not so much on whether each member wanted a senior center. I think to all 7, I can speak on behalf of them, that everybody wants the senior center. It was the article, pieces of the article that were troubling from a finance perspective, not because we're worried about the health of the town's finances, but I think 2 of the members felt that we should wait for part of the borrowing piece, the bigger borrowing piece, for an article probably at special town meeting, where everything is leading to this not even being started till at the earliest when the ground thaws next spring. So that was a discussion, and that was kind of a sticking point, because by fall, those members felt that we would have a much clearer picture on a truer cost, if you will. So another member Mr. Champney spoke really directly to the article in general, and this is he's been very consistent, voting that any large project he feels should be an exclusion vote. It should not go in the levy, and that's just that's how he feels, and that's how he was going to vote, regardless, I think, of the project. So, and that's a discussion to be had. But, you know, it's since I've been on FinCom, it's been a discussion on what number should that be? Do we want to handcuff the town on saying anything over 10 million, you know, needs to go to a debt exclusion? Or I like to leave it up to you know, smart financial minds to make sure that it can be affordable. The town is going to do their best to make sure that we get the best cost savings we can. So all in all, like I said, two of the members had some concerns about pieces of the article where the design was fine. We needed to start the design money. We needed to be able to extract some of the stabilization money to get the project started, if by chance it started early, which doesn't appear to be the case. And then the third piece of that article, which is the actual borrowing of the 12 million. We had a short discussion on whether we wanted to move it down to 10, because we know that with the money that we have saved in stabilization and the cost, it pushes this project down to 9 as it stands right now. So discussion was we pretty much wanted to keep it at 12. Those of us that wanted to vote, or at least that was the motion that was presented at that time, was to vote on the article as is, and that's what had the 4-3 vote. I will say that all 7 members, including myself, certainly understood the concerns of the other members in regards to waiting on part of the article or adjusting it. But after conversations, and I was very candid, conversations with select board members, it was very clear they wanted this article all pushed through at the same time. They did not want to amend it. That being said, I would be open to it if we felt during town meeting, if things started to go astray, where this is a 2/3 vote, it's not an easy thing to have. That maybe at that time there could be a presented amendment to the article, and I think the select board perhaps would be prepared to do that. But that's where we're at. I think in my view, the 12 million is a safe number. We absolutely don't have to spend it all, and we won't unless something really crazy happens over the next year. And we were comfortable with getting the whole article done. I think Steve Venuti said it best. The library, we learned a little bit from the library, breaking it up into the design and then the funding. There's pros and cons to breaking it up like that. I think that all board members like the fact that it was being presented as a whole number, so the town doesn't kind of get pot committed. So come November or next year, when the borrowing article were to come up, we'd already say, well, we've already put 2 million into design and all this other. Now we kind of have to vote for it. It's kind of disingenuous, perhaps, to some people, even though the intention is good, I think, either way. But this kind of lets the town know we have a number. Here's what we are expecting. We want to make sure we have a contingency so we don't have to come back to you. And we're going to continue to put money into stabilization. This will probably give us another budget cycle, hopefully, to throw maybe another $1 million into this, pushing this project even further down. So I'm excited about it passing through FinCom. We all love unanimous votes on boards like that, but if you're going to have one board that isn't, I think Finance Committee is that one, because everyone's trying to be the best steward of how to make this happen. But all 7 are in support of a senior center. It's just the timeline to make that happen financially. I know that's a long, a long explanation, but.
But having watched the meeting, pretty accurate, Gary, I think.
Well, there was a lot of talking.
Yes. Okay, any questions for Gary? About that? No? Does anyone have a question about any one of the 7 items in Article 20? Marilyn?
Liz, this is a question for Liz. And it kind of came up last night a little bit, but not really. Liz, if Lapoli builds all these apartments that he's talking about, you know, over at 500 King Street or the other ones, and the building that isn't quite large enough, is this building possible, like say in 10 years when it might, to add a floor to it? Can you raise another floor on it if it's no longer large enough?
Are you referring to the new senior center building, or are you referring?
Yes, no, I'm referring to the new senior center building. And if all this population grows like they think it might, can we enlarge that building?
I
You
think
know,
that would
like
be a
add another
question.
floor to it, for example.
This,
Or is there room on the land to add an extension?
Madam Chair, Liz, what was I think we are building it for expansion. What was that? What was that
Right.
number we were looking at?
Right. So I think for the population growth over the next 10 years, we are going to need between 16 and 20,000 square feet. So we're over 16,000 square feet. We've added additional offices and workstation spaces in this building to accommodate for more staff if needed in the future. And I think if we were to need more programming space, which I think would be highly unlikely, I think we would have to do some smart programming and pare down what we offer, or utilize space with our friends across the street at the library if needed. But I think this building will accommodate us for years and years and years into the future.
It was just my question, because I'm all for having a senior center, but I was concerned about that population growth.
Well,
Yeah, even
actually,
the-
Marilyn, I
Sorry.
think that a lot of the data and the size of the building that was originally determined, as Liz just said, was determined because of the UMass report back in 2015 with the growth projection of seniors.
Right.
And also the population, that means there's going to be and the population is going to increase too, which could change things even. I think, was it Greg at the finance committee meeting last night talked about 40 years from now. Well, that's a little bit different, but
Yeah, I didn't talk about 40.
no, but in the space was the amount of square footage of these, usable space that was desired was determined by data from Mass Department of Elder and Human Services, correct, Liz? They had a
Executive
formula,
office.
formula to calculate what was adequate space for so many seniors, X number of seniors. So this should be quite adequate for at least 10 years or more, I would think, and it's all flexible space. Most of it is pretty flexible. So, yeah. I'm not as worried about, I was worried about that in the beginning when they were talking about 10 or 12,000 square feet. That bothered me, but I feel much better having it be the 16,200 square feet or something like that, whatever. So, that's a lot of space considering what we have now. It's like, it's just going to feel like a castle.
Right. Right now we're somewhere between 3,800 and 6,000, depending if you're counting the multi-purpose room downstairs. So we found ways to make it work for the time being.
So. All right.
So, Marilyn, I asked some of those same questions earlier, more along the office space and if there was room to grow. So Liz was working on that with me too. So I don't know, the program space is right. I can't really comment on that, but I was concerned about having enough space if the office staff expanded. So. And to answer your question, Marilyn, it would be virtually impossible, I think, to put a third floor on any of the buildings in town because of the elevator requirements and things like that. There would potentially, but just looking at the plan, that you could potentially build out towards Shattuck Street more, but that would be an undertaking.
I think that the part of the charm of this would be not to do that, and I know the residents of Shattuck Street
Yes.
are very much against anything
Yes.
above their houses, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the design of the new building much better than the old building.
So do
The
I.
plan.
Beautiful.
And I love the green space onto Shattuck Street. All the green space.
I think after the people on Shattuck Street saw this plan and design, they calmed down a little bit that it's not as, not a bad place to be. It's not gonna take over their whole Shattuck Street development area, that they feel more comfortable. It fits in, it's not tall, it's not lanky.
Yeah, and Marilyn, just to talk to your question even more, is the fact that there's discussion about that the Shattuck facility potentially becoming, senior
Housing.
housing doesn't increase the senior population in Littleton. That's really to help Littleton residents that need that type of housing. So I don't think it increases the capacity, right? It's
I
just
wasn't referring to those. I was referring to the ones
General.
at the old IBM building where they're talking about 400 apartments or more. That's what
What that,
so
those all senior housing either.
right. It's just general to, and very few of those will be, I think, 40%. As of right now, I think it's a whole gambit of 40 to 80% AMI. But yeah, and that whole discussion is so loose right now. I believe that we're probably still leaning towards doing something with that Shattuck facility as a town before we're closer to doing that than we are to moving to King, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking of the apartments that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary, has there been any talk in Finance Committee about how much it's going to cost to replace the tennis courts?
So I'm trying to think of how much is in the article for the feasibility.
60,000.
Yeah. So
That's a pretty big chunk for a feasibility of tennis courts.
and it's a piece of land. I know that they're looking at a piece of land that we already own to do that, whether on school property or otherwise, to really do a tennis court complex. So there hasn't, because it hasn't been presented besides the feasibility. That's it. We don't have any idea of what that's going to look like. I'm sorry, Dave.
David?
Yeah, Mark, when we briefly considered the tennis court spot, didn't somebody float the number of $250,000 to replace
No,
that?
someone threw out that it was going to cost $1 million. I don't believe that it's $1 million. I mean, that field just built two over at the Weber property, and I'm sure he didn't invest that much money in them.
No,
but
that's what
I
thought heard.
don't know what the number is, but the saving isn't the real $4 million, because when you still have the tennis courts you have to replace, or whatever cost that is. Even if it is coming from a different tax bucket, it's still Littleton tax money.
Yeah,
So
I thought it was $250,000 to replace those.
it could have been, that could be a more realistic number, but I really have no idea what a realistic number is to replace tennis courts.
Yes, Susan.
I move that the COA board supports Article 20 as written.
Second it.
Susan has moved that, made a motion that the COA board support Article 20 as it is presented in the town warrant, published town warrant.
Correct.
David seconded that. Is there any more discussion about it? If not, we'll do our little handy roll call vote. Mark?
I'm going to vote yes, but I will say that I also share the concerns for the people on the finance committee who were questioning whether we should be voting the money portion now.
Okay, David,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes,
Ann Lee,
Yes.
Lorelei,
Yes.
thank you. Marilyn,
Yes, but I'm like Mark, still a little bit on the fence, but I do support it.
okay, thank you. Anita,
Yes, I'm voting yes, and I don't think it really makes a difference whether the 12 million is in there or isn't in there, because nobody's gonna borrow that or spend it until we have a project underway and we're ready. So the fact that it would make it easier not having to come back to town meeting for that money, and the possibility that because we're stepping up and doing this, we might get some kind of money from the state or the feds on this. I don't think it's that big of a deal to have that number in there. So yes, I'm voting yes.
all right, thank you. And Margie said yes, so we have a unanimous vote, thank you. Oh. All right. I did have one thing I just wanted to ask you, I was going to mention, because I know one or two of you are aware of this. I don't know how many of you that recently in the April 22nd edition of the Eagle Independent, there's an article titled Developer Eyes Town Hall Site for Elder Housing. And it's about the proposal, Lipoli proposal for moving the town offices to King Street to the IBM site and rehabbing the Shattuck Street building for deeply affordable senior housing. So anyway, at the very end, I just want to point this out and make sure it's clear to everybody. At the very end of that, it says, the Affordable Housing Trust, Council on Aging, and Sustainability Committee support the measure. Well, we've never taken a vote. I don't know where they got that information or why it was published that way, but we have not voted on that, and I just
And
want
the
to go on the record. Pardon me?
and the Affordable Housing Trust has not taken a vote on it either.
Yeah, so I don't know where the writer, says Margaret Smith wrote the article, but I don't know how come she felt that that was the case. Anyway, just pointing it out so that we have clarity amongst us on the board.
We should probably request a redaction until we've had time to deliberate on it. I don't think that's not responsible writing.
I
Oh.
agree. I agree. We should respond to that.
Right.
I will call her. I can call her and talk to her. I have her phone number, I think. I do. I don't think it's changed. I haven't
She
talked
should
to her.
put- She
I
should
can
put
write her.
retraction in. There
Okay,
should be a retraction in the paper.
So too.
okay. So that's your wish. I will look into that and try to have that happen. It disturbed me because I'm like, where did she get that idea? You know, we have not discussed it really. So, okay. I wanted to mention it just as a point of clarification, and it is important, I think. So I will get back to you on that and let you know what happens. All right.
I
Is
just,
there any one from the public here, Liz? Amy and Nicole, you've been with us and quiet. Do you have any questions? Are you as excited as we are about this whole process? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I got so excited when I saw that tape show that Liz and Anthony and Joe did that it made my day the other day. Yes, David,
Anita is straining at the bit to say something.
I missed that.
I want to ask a question.
Sure.
Do we need to have any kind of handout at town meeting? Or is everything going to be taken care of with the presentation that Liz and Anthony are doing? Is there any information we should be giving out? I mean, the presentation doesn't explain how we've increased in numbers of helping people. I don't know if that's necessary to help get it through a vote or not. It's just a question.
Hmm.
Go ahead, Susan.
No, I was just going to say a good question.
Well, anything that you can, you can say or do that shows the need and why there is, not just because we've wanted a senior center forever and now it's our turn. That's not the reason why we're really doing this, even though it's a good thing. There are reasons why we need one and need a bigger one. And I don't know if that should be in a handout that they can read that night.
I think it's up to Liz really to, she's got a handle on, I feel confident that she has a handle on this, and if you want to talk it over maybe with Cindy and Anthony and ask if they think there's anything that we could be doing, at the meeting
I'll do
as a
that.
group. Yeah, because I'm sure most of us would be happy to do that. If there was something that we could hand out that, it's like telling people now that don't worry, the tennis courts are going to be replaced, people need reassurance about that too, so. Anyway, unless somebody else has an idea about it, I would trust their decision.
I don't think it needs to be a handout, but if you had facts like why we need a new senior center, it wouldn't be bad to put them as part of the presentation.
Got it.
Okay. I think, yeah, maybe put that out. I mean, we've talked a lot, and I know you did in the recording about this started many years ago, but maybe we had a nice little fact sheet that we handed out at one time, maybe. Just, you're right, Mark, getting the facts out there again to let people,
I like that.
Yeah.
that's the one I'm thinking about, yeah.
Right. That's just more information that makes people understand why.
Yep.
It's not just because.
And that information also points out that it's not just a senior center. It's the home of EHS, which has grown by leaps and bounds.
People still forget that, don't realize that.
If I recall last town meeting over the summer outside that was a question that a citizen brought up.
Right.
Yeah, so I know that is a point of contention that, yeah, kind of getting ahead of that, whether it's with Liz, Anthony, when you guys do your presentation, just to speak to that. I think that's important message.
And even if it isn't part of your presentation and somebody brought the question up and you had the data to come right back, the more that you can come right back with actual figures in any way possible is, I think, better than not.
I will be prepared.
Okay,
Well,
call upon us at anything, for anything, any way we can help. So.
Maybe everyone can have a prepared statement to read.
I'm sure they'd all love that, right? But maybe not, maybe.
Make it a really long meeting.
Yeah. I mean, it's really,
I feel badly that it's so late in the meeting,
right.
that it isn't earlier in the meeting before people start to go home.
Yeah, there's a lot of articles that are definitely. I was in the meeting this morning, the pre-meeting.
Yeah.
Diane and the moderator. There's a lot of articles that he's going to bundle. And
Good.
those are really maintenance type items, but I think we're going to get to this article quicker than you think.
I say it looked like a lot of the things that were in there, he could put on a consent calendar and he could bundle and is
going to,
through a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting articles, but you never know. And any given day, right? A different resident could pop up and say,
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second
Do
it.
we have, before we do, I entertain that, I just want to check about the public. Do we have anyone, did you say, Liz, with
No.
us from the public? Okay.
No.
I did not want to ignore any potential public viewers. I wanted to be polite. So we have a motion from David and seconded by who?
Marilyn.
Marilyn, okay. To adjourn the meeting? Anita?
Yes.
Oh, I'm going out of turn here. Okay. Gary?
yeah, see you at town meeting.
Yes.
Yes. Mark?
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Lorelei,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes,
Ann Lee,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
and Marge is a yes, and I hope to see you all at town meeting for sure. So
Good day and good weekend.
have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Marge, for having this.